Welcome to Barbells Business and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters, business owners, and being a woman in a male dominated industry. Today, Christy and I are so excited to have a male guest on, Travis Ortmayer, who we both have known for years in the strongman sport. So, welcome, Travis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. All right, so we'll jump into it. I want to hear your background story, but first off, tell us what you just competed in.
OSG World's Strongest Master. So the over 40 World Championships. It was diving into the deep end head first. Let's just say, because I had a hip replacement in January, and for like 2 years before that, I haven't been able to train worth a shit. So trying to get my strength back was it was a steep hill to climb. Let's just put it that way.
So
Yeah,
January hip replacement. Less than a year later competing. That's something to be proud of.
Well, I appreciate that. I signed up like April, way before I was even remotely ready. But it was something to keep me focused. If you are reaching for something that's just a little bit outside of your grasp, you develop faster. That stimulates neuroplasticity more. You have a tendency to go farther than you would have otherwise. So that was the whole goal behind it.
Was your doctor like, you're crazy, or was your doctor like, yeah, go for it? I do athletes all the time, or what they have to say about it?
He initially I went in because my hip was hurting and I had a hard time walking, bending over in certain positions. And he says, well, I can see what the problem is. You have no cartilage left on this side. You're going to need a replacement, which is like a slap in the face to an athlete. So I tried to go, I don't know, maybe I was going to go as long as I could, but I made it about 6 months with the cortisone injections and trying to compete on it. And because initially he said, once we do this, you won't be able to do what you're doing. And then he came back to me a couple months later. He says, you know what? I've done some research. I've looked into the different models, the different hip replacements that are out there. And the truth is, we don't really know what they're capable of doing. So if you're willing to try, and don't hold me accountable, because I'm telling you, this is an iffy idea, but let's go for it. And so when we got that green light, I was all in. And he's been amazing. I mean, here's the kind of guy that he is. I think it was 1 week after my surgery, he went helicopter skiing in Alaska, got caught in an avalanche, had to survive off of his oxygen bottle for half an hour while they dug him out. So I found the right guy.
That's my worst fear.
So yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy, and I'm crazy in our crazy matches, and we've had pretty good success so far.
Yeah, well, now they know that the hips can withstand a 900-pound car yoke. So it's a nice little experiment there.
Yeah, well, I set a world record in the process. The heaviest I had seen anybody do was a 300-pound man and an 860 yoke. So I'm 330, and it was a 903-pound yoke, something like that. So a record's a record. I'm going to take it wherever I can get them now.
Was competing at OSG, where you just had that big surgery, that replacement, was that a completely different competitive experience compared to, all the other shows you've done where you are coming back from such a big surgery? Was the mindset different?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was still, there was a lot of hesitancy because, in my mind, I'm thinking if I take a bad step, I had this guy reach out to me on Instagram when I first started training. He says, you got to be careful with those hip replacements because you can break it out of the bone and it'll sever your femoral artery and you'll die in minutes.
Oh my God.
That going in the back of my mind, like, am I freaking crazy? Like, am I sure? So yeah, going into it, it was really not about where I placed. It was not about how well I did overall. I mean, it always is to some degree, but the main thing was just, is this possible? And now that I know it is, I'm 100% full steam ahead.
That makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
in
sorry,
go
there's a
ahead.
little bit of a lag. I mean, the reason I love following you on Instagram is because you post things that really show a really good mindset. Um, and things, and like you even talking about your comeback and your mindset going into OSG is like really awesome and inspiring, because I know that Brittany and I have come back from injuries before, and managing those expectations and knowing like what it means, like what a win is for you is, super important. So I'm like, it's awesome to hear about your mindset there, because there's a lot of people out there. I keep on hearing about a lot of people having hip replacements lately. Gary, my fiance, being one of them.
Yeah.
So I remember I following you. It's like I remember it was like a week out. Or like a week after hip surgery. I'm doing this. 5 weeks. I'm doing this. 6 weeks. A month. You were like doing crazy things. So I just think it just goes to show, like, don't limit yourself. Um, so you've obviously been through other stuff to help you prepare for that. So I just really appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing your journey that way.
Well, it's been a tumultuous road. It's now I use my story, my path to show people what's possible. And honestly, I don't just do that because I want to help others. It helps me keep forging ahead, because if I have to tell someone else what's possible, if I have to try and inspire somebody else to be better, I have to live that first. I'm not, the last thing on earth I am is a hypocrite. And I'm not going to tell you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself.
I love that. And I especially love that you said you signed up for OSG, so many months prior when you were still in recovery, because it increases neuroplasticity. And I can relate to that because when I had my wrist surgery, I randomly decided to sign up for a powerlifting meet because I was so scared to bench press. And
Yes.
I felt like if I had that overarching goal, and it's funny talking to both of you because you keep joking like you're a little crazy, your ortho was a little crazy. Like, to put yourself in a situation where not only could you fail, you could get re-injured and have to have surgery, or God forbid, like that person that messaged you that said you could, you know, die. I hate to say that, but it's true. So it's kind of like we're all big risk takers, but at the same time, we're all setting an example to show anything is possible. And I absolutely love that. And I'm so glad you're on here because Chrissy and I both know your story, your past. I've always been drawn to you because of how open you are about it. But for those listening, they may not know. So if we could just kind of take it back to young Travis, what you were like. You're obviously a big man naturally, how you got into loving strength sports and kind of your journey.
So I wasn't always the big kid.
Okay, I did not know that.
Well, maybe I would have been, but I was always the youngest in my grade, so I was always way behind everybody else. So I never really grew up thinking I was the biggest or strongest. I always felt like I was way behind, trying to catch up. But middle school, I think, is when everybody else had that big leap forward in height. They lean out, they lose the baby fat, and I just got fatter. Sixth grade, seventh grade, I was a fat kid, and I was bullied relentlessly. Um, we had moved to South Georgia from Southern California in sixth grade, at the beginning of sixth grade. So I not only was I this fat kid, I was also the California boy in South Georgia. And the white kids hated me because I was Californian, and the black kids hated me because I was white, and all of them hated me because I was fat. So it made for a pretty rough few years. And that's about the time I started lifting. I was 11 when I started to work out. Um, I had saved up money mowing lawns, and I bought this. It was a Vitamaster 1700, I think is what it was called. It was one of those cheap little benches from Walmart. Um, and I had a set of the plastic weights with the dumbbells. but I didn't have a bar. So I wanted to bench press because everybody wants to bench press when they're a kid. So I went in the kitchen and I took my mom's broom and I sawed the end off and then tried to pretend like I didn't know what happened to it. Took it outside and I used that for my barbell. Um, she wasn't happy about that, but it kind of grew from there. I started to work out on a regular basis, and I didn't really get stronger than everybody else until maybe my junior year of high school. I caught up, developmentally, I guess, height wise, size wise. I started to fill out and lean out. Nobody was picking on me by my junior year, and senior year was pretty easy in that regard. But then I grew another 2 inches in college. So it's just a real steady, slow process. But I did get up to about 6'4". I'm about 6'3" now after 22 years of strongman. But I got into my first competition kind of by accident. There's a guy named Marshall White, and he went to Worlds in 2009. I had met him at a YMCA, I think it was. Anyway, we were training for powerlifting together. Because before that, to rewind a little bit, I did bodybuilding because that's all I knew about. I wanted to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wanted to look like a superhero. I did 2 bodybuilding shows in high school, my junior and senior year. And then I realized the subjective nature of bodybuilding. So these competitions were fundraisers for the football team, and I was not on the football team. So even though I was the only one who knew what a lat spread was, I didn't place in the top 3. So I kind of realized, maybe this isn't for me. That, and every time I started to look big, I'd grow another inch or 2 and stretch everything out. It was just a pain in the ass. But anyway, so back up to Marshall, and we're training for powerlifting. And we did a meet. We both bombed out on squats. And at that time, we didn't know you got to finish the meet. We thought if you bombed out, that's it, you're done, you have to go home. So we left after spending all this money to get into it. I was like, man, bodybuilding sucks. Powerlifting sucks. Maybe
You were about 17.
I was 17 when I graduated high school. I was about 19 when we did the powerlifting meet.
Okay.
And then,
oh no, you left.
well, at that time, I was in school full time. I was working as a waiter 4 nights a week, almost full time. And at that point, I thought, maybe I'll just focus on school and I'll make as much money as I can. And this passion that I have, maybe I'll just put that on the back burner and pick it up after I get through school. And it was like God had a different plan for me. It was right at that time, Marshall came to me and he says, I'm going to do Texas Strongest Man. I said, you mean like those guys on TV? What are you, crazy? We'll never be that strong. But nevertheless, he signed up and I went with him. This was when I was living in Houston. I moved to Texas right as I graduated, literally the day I graduated high school. I moved from Georgia to Texas. So we drive from Houston all the way up close to the Oklahoma border. And I just remember Marshall the whole time saying, I just don't want to finish last, man. I don't care how it goes. I just don't want to finish last. And I'm trying to tell him, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'll give him support. But anyway, we're signing up. The promoter looks at me and he says, hey, you're here. Why don't you just sign up? So I said, you know what? What the hell? I'll give it a shot. And then Marshall looks at me and says something that changed my life. He looked up and he says, man, I'm glad you're signing up because at least now I know I won't take last.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know how competitive I was until he did that.
Are you guys still friends?
I haven't talked to him in a while. There's some other shit that happened a while ago, but yeah. But the next day, that competition was the absolute most fun thing that I'd ever done in my entire life. And I still kind of get worked up emotional about it because it literally changed my life. I had this respectable college path in biotechnology, and I was like academic awards, honors credit. I was 4.0 GPA, and I was really good in college. And then strongman came into my life, and I went a completely different direction.
Yeah, why does strongman do that? It's so funny because I know a lot of people's like first shows are like I walked up in a parking lot and I learned how, the other competitor taught me how to do the log right there and I just did it, and I
Yeah,
think so many people are afraid to start and it's just like I don't know, a lot of people don't even have these things or ever touched, something, but so you never know. I guess it's just going to show
complete.
try something you never know. So I'm guessing you said you beat Marshall though,
Oh,
right?
so
You
I took
win?
fifth in that show, and he did, in
Uh-huh.
fact, take last. But that's kind
Oh
of,
my gosh.
he
Yeah.
saying what he didn't want, didn't want, didn't
Mhm.
want. But when you say what you don't want, you're picturing that thing and then trying to make a
Mhm.
negative of it. So he
Your
created
Yeah.
subconscious.
without realizing it.
Yeah.
That's good advice too, especially because I know you coach people now. So I'm sure you're
Yeah,
kind of coaching them with that mindset too, especially when you're first starting. A lot of people are just afraid of the worst, afraid of losing, instead of like, focusing on the goal. But that's awesome that you got fifth. And so was that exact moment the switch for you that made you
100%.
more competitive?
100%. That, well, it all lined up just right. It all lined up right. So I had that spark of competitiveness, and then I ended up doing really well for someone who had never touched most of the implements. I had flipped a tire, but we found one at a construction site. It's about 700 pounds. Threw it in the back of his truck while all the workers were looking at us like we were crazy, and then we drove off with it. And that was the one thing that we had trained. But like you said, all the other guys were there teaching us how to do all of the stuff. Somebody let me borrow their tacky, and I still remember the smell of that tacky. It was the old Harpix handball glue tacky, and it had this really distinct smell. I still have a little bit of a jar left, and I crack it open every now and then to kind of get that feeling back from the first contest.
Oh,
That sentimental stone tacky
It,
smell. That's awesome.
it's
That
probably
just
20 years old at this point.
that just goes to show us, I know all three of us love strongman, but just how much passion there is in the sport. Like the fact that you still crack open that tacky case just to get like the memory from the first show. That's awesome. I
I got
think, yeah,
goosebumps.
yeah, I love it.
yeah. What year was that again?
So that was
Did you say?
2002, August 2nd,
Okay.
2002. It was 1 week before my
Uh-huh.
21st birthday.
Yeah. So over 20 years ago. So you've been in
22.
this sport for a long, long time and through a lot, um, as well. Then now even through a hip replacement and coming back. So that's just goes to show like strongman just kind of takes you away and you're like, I'm in it.
Well, a time came when I had pushed so hard for so long that I mentally just broke. I think my body had thrown injuries at me, it had thrown exhaustion at me. And I think my subconscious finally realized this crazy bastard's not going to stop. I have to really do something just to make him quit because I'm going to break. And that's when my life started to fall apart. I had been to three IFSA World Championships back when IFSA and World Strongest Man were split, and then I had been to four World Strongest Man. Made the finals three times, got fifth each time. Um, 2010, I broke my ankle halfway through the final. I was in first at the time, and I had all of my good events the next day. So I fought. I did everything I could. I held on for fifth again. And that injury, I think, was kind of a tipping point because I had beaten myself up before. I had injured myself, but that injury took a toll mentally and physically. My next competition was the Arnold, and it was about 5.5 months later. And rather than just sit it out and heal, I went full steam ahead, and I still ended up taking fourth. But I mean, I had to tape my ankle and then strap a brace to it so I could do everything. It's just like obvious signs that say just chill the crap out, Travis. Just chill out, man. What are you doing? Um, but after that, I was sick of it. I was tired of competing. I was tired of the training. I was tired of just all of it. and I forced myself to keep going. I competed for a whole nother year and a half after that, because I needed money. At that point, it became a job. And so that was another nail in the coffin. Uh, Now, when I was at World's Strongest Man 2010 and I had broken my ankle, I was already taking painkillers, just to keep going, basically. And the shitty thing is, when I broke my ankle, I was actually almost out, so I had next to nothing to take when I actually needed them. So, well, but I over the next couple of years, I tried to quit, and I didn't realize just how deep I had gotten in. This is where I screwed up. I went and got a prescription from the father of a friend, and he worked at a clinic, and it was a pain management clinic. And so I got my prescription, and I used them religiously, I guess, just to keep going. And when I wanted to stop, I was already hooked. I did not know. I mean, I knew that could happen, but I didn't know how easily, or how, just it sneaks up on you. And then trying to get off of a narcotic like that sucks. It's miserable. And I didn't have any idea what to expect. So I was trying to do it without any outside influence or help. And, when you get a weekend of trying to quit something like that, and you have been just dying the whole week, you finally give in because you think it's never going to end. But then the numbness that causes is not just physical. It's an emotional numbness as well. So at that point, I was married and we had a son. And so my wife and I started to grow apart, I guess. And looking back, I could see, all the mistakes that I made and the thoughts that I had that led the wrong direction. But in the moment, nobody talked about that. Nobody tells you what to expect. That's why I'm so open with my story. I want people to realize you're not alone, that one in every probably 3 people is struggling with something. And it's okay to speak out and ask for help, ask questions. But I didn't at that time. And so it just got worse and worse. And then we eventually split up, and she was from England originally. So she took our son and moved back to England. I was under the impression that I was supposed to sell the house and everything we had in America and come over once she had gotten a place set up over there.
Mm.
In the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't true. But the little guy back here was screaming at me that this was a terrible idea. But the Travis out front said, no, this is what we have to do to make it work. So November 25th, 2012 was the absolute worst day of my life. Most painful moment. After all the injuries that I'd had, nothing came close to this. I took them to the airport, and my son was 3 years and 3 weeks to the day. And he had his little Cars backpack, Lightning McQueen backpack and hat. He had his tiny little suitcase, little roller suitcase. And I remember hugging him and just getting this feeling of dread, like this was going to be the last time I got to for a long time. So I'm taking in every bit that I can. And then I let them walk away, and I see he's excited. He's going on an adventure. He's got this big smile on his face. And I'm trying to hide the pain that I'm feeling. And when they walked through the doors and the doors closed behind them at the airport, I could feel this huge hole open up and rip my heart in half. It was the most painful feeling I've ever experienced. I actually had to pull over twice on the way home because I thought I was just going to crash. But at that point, because I was hurting so much, I told myself, you know what, Travis, just take a week and just do whatever you want. Get as fucked up as you want. You want to drink. You want to take a bunch of pills, whatever. And I had a person, an old friend, reach out to me that had crystal meth. And so I reached out and got some of that. And it did a great job of numbing the pain. And that week turned into 4 years of absolute misery. Because that shit will grab you faster than anything.
Was that the first time you had done meth?
I think I had done it a couple times, but it would be like overseas. And so it would be, an overnight thing. And
Yeah, like a little fun thing, and then,
yeah, there was a lot
but
of
not
crap
to cope. Yeah,
back, a lot of
yeah.
crap. uh,
You know what's crazy, Travis, too? So you said that was 4 years, so roughly till 2016 or so. And like, I remember I did my first strongman show 2014. And, I was such a fan of everyone. And like, I'd always watch World's Strongest Man. And like, I knew who you were. And I didn't know until years later, because I was just looking at people's lifts and like studying, how they lifted an Atlas stone when they were competing or at the Arnold. I never knew that about you until way, way, way later, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, that is because I had met you, and I just like, I can't remember when I met you, but I just remember you remind me so much of my older brother, and I've told you that I thought you were the kindest, nicest person. So to learn that about you after, I was even more blown away because I saw you come back from it. So I just had to share that because I just still can't believe it was 4 years. It's just like props to you.
well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And the thing that saved me, there's a couple things that saved me, but trying to find a way out of that hell is tricky, because so much of it's mental. It's never the drug that's the problem. The drug is the solution to whatever your real problem is. It's not a good solution by any means, but it is your attempt at a solution to whatever's really happening. And I just hated myself. I loathed myself. I felt so miserable, and I looked around at the world around me with such a negative scope, because anytime I would start thinking about my life, I had this list of negativity that I would go through. It's like I lost my family, lost my son, I lost my parents, friends turned their backs on me. I lost my career. All the strongman was gone. And then I lost my house. I mean, I lost everything. Just this descent into madness over the next few years. And when you're alone like that, you don't have any support. The only people in my life were other addicts who were also equally as negative and, fighting their own battles. And I got to, there's always, like I said, there's the Travis back here and there's Travis out here. The guy back here is always taking notes. And I would watch the people around me, and I would watch, like, as soon as they started meth or shortly after they'd start, and then I would end up in their circle, and I could see how quickly their life would just spin out of control, losing their own family, losing their own homes. It was wild to see. And I thought to myself, all of these people are hurting. I'm not the only one. Every one of these people has a problem. And there has to be a way out of it. If there's a way into it, there's got to be a way out of it. And so that became kind of like the guiding light, because like I say, I lead by example. If I can tell someone else how to get out of it, then I have to be able to do it myself. So I made that the mission, is trying to help others climb out of that hell. And in doing so, that forced me to have to actually live it first. And so what I mentioned, the negative list, I lost my family, lost my home, I lost my friends, I lost my job. This would just run through my mind constantly. It was like this negative list that just created this negative spiral of energy. And I noticed, the guy back here noticed that the more I went through that list, the worse my life seemed to get. And then one day, things had gotten so bad. This is 2015. And I was hanging on to my relationship with my son as much as I could. At this point, he's 4 or 5 years old, and he doesn't want to talk on the phone every day. I don't blame him. So I'd call and I'd try to have a conversation with him and see how he was doing. And I could hear sometimes his mom coaching him in the background, or when I'd say something, he would say, "Mommy's rolling her eyes," and just shit like that. You don't want your kid to look at you like that. That part wasn't fair. The leaving me, I get. The leaving me, I understand, but that keeping my son from me and doing shit like that wasn't fair. But anyway, this particular day, I had called and I got the voicemail again. And that was like a little stab in the heart every time. And it broke me. I was ready to end it. I was done. I was done fighting. I was done struggling. I just picked up my gun. I had a 40 caliber Beretta, these hollow point bullets that had a little rubber ball in the end. And I was ready to finish my life. I was ready to just go. So I'm putting the gun in my mouth and I'm cocking it, which is a really surreal feeling. Being that close, I mean, literally 3 pounds of pressure away from lights out. And this this vivid picture comes up in my head. And I think it was the Travis back here screaming at me in a way that all I saw was the poor bastard who had to clean up my mess. And I thought to myself, God, I can't do that to someone. Whatever it takes, man, whatever it takes to stop, I guess. And, at that point, I realized, Jesus Christ, if I'm worried about how somebody else is going to deal with this, maybe I shouldn't be here right now. Maybe I'm not ready to do this. And so I put the gun down and, I'm shaking. I'm sitting there completely freaked out over what has just happened. And I thought, how the hell did I get here? And then boom, that negativity list starts going. And I thought, now wait a second. Every time I do that, my life gets worse. There's got to be another way. So I said, if spiraling downward, if making this negative list takes me that direction, maybe I can try a positive list and go the other way. And so I said, all right, let's find one thing, just one thing to be grateful for. And so I look around my house, and every corner of my house has a memory of my son. So every time I'm in there, it's just pure sadness. It's just the house had become a prison. And at this point, it was a tweaker house. It had been 4 years or 3 years of just shit piling up and tweaker. Just that's all I could say. So I look around and immediately I go, well, let's find one good thing. And then boom, negative, 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 negative. And I went, stop. One thing. And I put my head down. I'm starting to concentrate. I'm really, really trying to find something. I said, just make it simple. And I look down, I see my feet, my toes move. And I thought, all right, well, I still have both of my feet. And with these feet, I can get up and I don't have to sit here anymore. I can walk out of this miserable hellhole. And then right then, it's like this feeling of joy just started here in the pit of my stomach and just rose up my spine. And it was the best feeling I've had in years. It was overwhelming. And I sat with it for a while. I go to bed, I get up the next day and I said, I want that feeling again. So, okay, Travis, let's find one more thing to be grateful for. All right, you got your feet. Let's find a new one. And I looked around and right away that negative spiral started. So I cut it off. I said, you got your feet. I still got my hands. My hands are still strong. I got, with these feet and these hands, I could get up. I could go anywhere and I could do anything. There's nothing holding me back. And then boom, that feeling came up again. I said, oh, this is what I'm looking for. This is the feeling that I need. And so the third day, I found a third thing. The fourth day, I found a fourth thing. On the fifth day, I didn't find a new thing. So I went back through my previous 4. Now I have a gratitude list. So I kept I kept focused on that. I would go through this. Anytime I felt that negative list start to come up, I would cut it off and I would tell myself the things I was grateful for. And then it came around to, keeping a rock or something in my pocket. And every time I reached in my pocket and felt that rock, I would pull it out, I would look at it, and I would go through my list. And I just made that a habit. And so now I have all this negative momentum, and I'm starting to not only slow it down, but reverse that momentum in a positive way. And it was very difficult to do because I had a lot of negative momentum. The people around me didn't know what to think of it. And I remember one person in particular, and this is when I knew what I was doing was powerful, because she said to me, "What do you have to be so grateful for?" Oh, shit. This is powerful. This is powerful. It's shaking people up. So that just gave me even more momentum to just keep doing what I was doing. Now, it took a while to really get the positive momentum going. And I realized I was still stuck in that house, and that house was a prison. Like I said, every corner had a sad memory or a happy memory of my son in it. I still had crayon drawings on the wall that I'd never cleaned off. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get myself out of it. But I had not paid for I had not made a payment in like a year. I filed for bankruptcy a couple times to keep from foreclosing. And I knew that I was going to lose the house. So I told myself, this is your prison. And the day you get out of here, you're going to be free. And so I left all my negative energy in that house. And then the day they came to kick me out, this is in October of 2015, they came, banged on the door, kicked me out, took all my shit and ransomed it back, because that's how that works, apparently. When you get evicted, a cleanup crew comes in, and then they take your stuff and they auction it off, but you have the chance to buy it back first. So they kicked me out. It sucked. I'm not going to say it was immediate freedom. It was scary. It was sad. It was like, what am I going to do now? I have nowhere to live. I have my truck. I have a couple pairs of clothes, socks, underwear that the cop let me grab before I had to go. I don't even have a damn pillow. And I went to the storage unit where we had trained strongman for 12 years prior. And we got to know the owners really well, Linda and Steve, at All Safe Storage in Cypress, Texas, if anybody's out there. Great people. I had gotten my stuff back. I filled my truck with my stuff, brought it over to the storage unit. I'm trying to make space to put it all in. And I was up late trying to move shit around. And so I took a nap in my truck. And then Steve comes by the next morning. He goes, with his thick East Texas accent, he said, "Now, Travis, you can't stay here, right?" Oh, yeah. Of course, Steve. Of course. Absolutely. I fell asleep. I was trying to do this. But then I fell asleep in my truck the next night, and they didn't say anything. And then I ran an extension cord so that I had somewhere to charge my phone and a light to turn on. And I ended up sleeping in that storage unit on top of like a 2-foot by 3-foot, like a storage / plyo box. And I had a yoga mat that I put on top of it. And then I put my feet on the shelf behind that. And I slept there for like 3 months. They just kind of looked the other way. At one point, Lindy even said I was just another one of her stray cats. But that was freedom. That's what they're like, was that the low point in your life? No, the low point in my life was that moment in the bathroom where I found gratitude. That was the low point. That was absolute rock bottom. That was the turning point. And the storage unit was freedom. And I felt lighter. I felt happier. Like every day was just better, just all around better. I had these skills now, my gratitude list, and learning how to find the good in things, and then just not stressing about things you can't
Mm-hmm.
control. And I had gotten a call from my parents. My mom had gotten sick. So she'd gotten liver failure. Um, not sure what it was. It's not like she was a heavy drinker. Who knows what happened, But they said, you should probably come out here and at least see the family. So I hadn't talked to them in 3 years. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is pretty important. I want to go see my family. I want to make amends. I was still using meth at this time, but I kind of like how I knew the house was my prison and I couldn't get out on my own. I couldn't quit the meth on my own, but I had a plan. So I stayed in the storage unit and I continued doing what I had done to make money. I would go around on trash night and find things people put out and, furniture or TVs or whatever. I'd clean them up and then I would resell them. And so that was how I was making money. And staying in the storage unit meant I didn't have to pay for a hotel, so I could save up money a little faster. It wasn't comfortable by any means, but it worked. Uh, one of
How
my
were
last,
you eating
yeah.
and stuff like that?
What's that?
How were you finding like getting food and buying food?
Oh, every other day I would eat fast food. There was a McDonald's almost next door. It was so gross. I hate McDonald's, but I was losing a lot of weight because I was only eating once like every 36 hours. But the last thing I had to do was paint my truck. I had this 2003 Dodge Dakota, and the sun in Houston had burned all the paint off. And somewhere in like 2014, I had made the attempt to strip it down and repaint it. But in true tweaker fashion, I got halfway through the project and then something else. So I had this like multicolored, different primer paint truck, and I couldn't leave like that. So I had this outdoor sprayer, and I sand the truck down, and it takes me a few days to get it right. But I sprayed the truck. The first coat was with gloss paint, and it was awful. It was so shiny, you could see every little ding, scratch, whatever. But then I went through with a mix of gloss and matte black, and it looked pretty good. Um, I finished that on Christmas Day, 2015. And the next day, I packed it up and I took off. So Boxing Day 2015, I had, just a small amount of the meth that I was going to take with me to taper off, but it was like a forced taper. It wasn't like a taper, oh no, I'll use a little bit more right now. I'll taper, oh, I'll just use a little bit this one time. And then, because that's what happens when you have constant access. So I had to taper it. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but this is probably the most important part about getting off of something like crystal meth because it really spikes your dopamine, and when you stop using it, you have zero dopamine. You have this crash, and it's like this depression where you just can't even get up. You just feel like shit. And I had tried to quit meth a couple times, and that depression would kick in, and you just, after a day or two of feeling so bad, you go back into it. But what's the one thing that spikes dopamine more than anything else? Novelty.
Gratitude.
So, novelty.
Okay.
I'm out on the road on this mission. I go where I want to go. I stop when I want to stop. I sleep, eat, do whatever I want, whenever I want. And it was just exciting the whole time. So here I am decreasing this exogenous stimulus of meth and increasing my endogenous dopamine. And I had zero side effects, no withdrawals, no problems. Um, and then on that trip, one of the most magical moments, I pulled into the Grand Canyon. There was snow everywhere. I had never driven in snow before, so that was fun. And I'm in a two-wheel drive pickup, but thankfully I have like 700 pounds of my shit in the back. That's the only reason I managed to make it out to Reno, because I drove through snow half of the way. Uh, anyway, I pull in. It's midnight. I pull over to the side of the road to take a nap. I find a parking lot, And then this is New Year's Eve. So New Year's Day, I wake up to the sun coming up right in front of me with the Grand Canyon laid out in front of me. And I have no more meth. It was like this rebirth on the first day of the year with this sunrise coming up. It was magical. And that was the last time I ever used. So
It's a good start to the year.
it was,
Yeah.
You probably know this, Travis, just based on everything you know about the brain and stuff, but for addicts, seeing the sunrise every morning is something that gives them a natural spike in norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin to help them. Because I've had depression, and that's something I did like every day for a while, was make sure I look at the sun, and it really does help. So the fact that you did it, do you have a pic? You had your phone. Do you have a picture of that by chance?
I do.
I would love to see it.
I can send you some pictures. I got the storage unit. I got the last picture I took of myself. I weighed 227 pounds. And I've got a picture of that sunrise coming up. I'm pretty sure it's on this phone. I could
Would
send
love
those
to see
to
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
just
And
got a new truck, basically.
yeah.
See the sunrise, and your meth is gone, and you're headed to see your family for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
like a movie. So this is amazing
Yeah.
to hear it from you.
And I'm sure you hear it all the time, but like, it's so important. Like, I just appreciate you telling your story so much because it's so important to hear this from, a literal strong man and be so honest and transparent. And, I can relate a lot, not to that extent, but just struggling with struggling with finding gratitude. And your moment was that lowest moment, in the bathroom. It's just amazing to me that that was a switch and you kind of like were able to make that connection with you of, oh, I need to not focus on this. Like to have that strength to be like, I need to find what I'm grateful for. I mean, that's stuff that I've like read self-help books over and over again and tried everything. Eventually it clicked for me. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel gratitude. It's awesome. Like my life's changed, but for you to be able to just recognize that in that moment, I'm like, what do you think happened? Like, did you even, I mean, it's just kind of something that happened, or I mean, like, how did you know to do that? And then
Yeah.
knowing about, and like, did you make up the rock in your pocket thing, or did you hear that from someone? Like,
So
where did you know how to do this?
this I actually heard somewhere else, but on the other stuff, somebody was guiding me. Something
Mhm.
was guiding me. I've always had what I feel like a maybe a guardian angel. I've had somebody. I've always thought it was maybe my grandfather, but who knows? But if I just shut the hell up and I let this part talk to me, all the important decisions have been filtered through here first. Like going to get the painkillers the first time, this said, no, bad idea. And I didn't listen. And, it happened again with the meth. And then it happened again with, hey, do this, gratitude. Hey, sit here at this green light and stare at it and wonder why you're not driving. And then car coming through the intersection 3 seconds later. Like just something watched me when it came to serious life altering things that was always there. And now anytime I hear that sucker pipe up, I listen. But it took a lot for me to start listening. But yeah, I just feel like something just guiding me because you said it, self-help books talk about this. And a lot of like advanced psychological or psychiatry, psychologist principles, practices, uh, they implement a lot of the things that I was doing just innately. I guess if you shut the hell up and you go where there's least resistance, then that usually is leading you the right way.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that I mean, I feel like we get all these, we look for things that are going to make us happy from so many different ways. And when you kind of literally had nothing, you kind of, it seemed like you realized all there was to be grateful for. I mean, like the sunrise at the Grand Canyon, like how awesome that is. And I just think that's so amazing. And it really goes to show too. It's like, I know you're kind of forced out of your house, but a lot of people think they're stuck in a situation, but you had the strength to remove yourself from that situation and like fight for, you getting a better life and all that stuff. So a lot of people might say, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck doing this, but it really is a lot of the the mental mindset shift, it seems like. I mean, you're living proof of that.
It was I didn't have the strength to remove myself from the house situation.
Hmm.
And I recognized that. So I was truthful with myself. I said, I
Okay.
can't, I don't seem to have what it takes to just get the hell up and go.
Hmm.
So I made another route
Hmm.
where it was going to happen for me.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just find different, like, here's what you need.
Hmm.
Can't go this way. Find a
Hmm.
back door or a side
Yeah.
or, yeah.
Hmm.
That's something I always tell myself when like you're in a situation like that, like you couldn't leave. And then it's interesting to when you're reflecting back to look at how it's almost like there's a higher power or something that was, gonna force you out. So that was, yeah. I loved hearing that story from you because I'm a big believer. Like I'm someone that just like exercise. And that's how I got into strength sports in general. If I don't literally every fucking day of my life practice being happy and grateful, I sink and I sink fast. So to hear you say that and to relate to that, because I've had that moment in the
Yeah.
bathroom. I remember you never forget that moment. And it's crazy what that little
Well,
voice can do.
at that moment, it's life or death, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've never really heard anyone else talk about it like that. So I'm glad that you shared it because it's not something, a couple people know, but you don't really talk about it. I don't talk about it like that. So to hear it from you is pretty beautiful and powerful.
Well, I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough to share now because
Yeah.
most people don't. And that's why most people get stuck in it and they feel so alone. They feel no one else has felt this before. No one else can understand. That loneliness, that isolation is what drives some of them to go a little too far. And I think it's so important to just let everybody know this kind of shit happens. And, it's not for everybody, but it's a natural part of life for a lot of people. And it's so easy to let those negative thoughts win because our brain is hardwired for struggle. And if we don't have enough struggle in our outside world, it'll create struggle. And I think that's where a lot of the mental health challenges come from today. We have an easy life because we're not running from predators or trying to stay warm or searching for food all day. So we have a lot of time to think and create more problems. It's an old survival mechanism that just doesn't quite serve us unless we have a handle on it and understand why it's there.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that learning about the science behind maybe like, anxiety, like the biology around like your anxiety and everything like that's really empowering for me. Just how connected the mind and the body is and how you feel. Um, I know for me at least that has helped actually like learning about what causes a panic attack or like and like you said too, just like the fight or flight response. Like for me, always looking for something that's wrong. I'm always looking for the danger. So I feel like I also have that thing where, you have the Travis in the back of your head. That's like reality. Um,
Yeah.
we all need to kind of tune in back into that.
Yeah.
But and yeah, a lot of people don't talk about that, that constant fight with, you know, well, I guess what we're dealing with because life's so easy.
So how do you live your life I know from reading your posts and stuff, but is it something like you have your rock? A side note, do you know that meme where it's like, do you really like rocks? Have you
I,
seen that yet?
I, I think I've seen that. Is it, but
Made
that
me
could be.
laugh because we all like rocks. Yeah. But anyways, back to the question, like, so how do you, is there like a set time every day that you practice it or just incorporate it all the time? Or what does that look like as part of your routine?
So one thing I wanted to touch on real quick was when you say panic attack or anxiety attack, there is a hack that you can do to short circuit one of those when it starts. Get a box or a bag of warheads, those really sour candies, and then pop one in the second you start to feel one of those come on, because sometimes it can short circuit that and take your brain a whole nother way.
I wish I'd
Cool.
known that before. And honestly, when you say the word warhead, my mouth puckers. I
Yeah.
already have that. I'm already like, ugh. So yeah, I'll have to try. I haven't had a panic attack in a long time, but I had them a lot. But yeah, I
I'm gonna
can't
get
even
some and
not stop
text you.
making that
I love
face right
that.
now of like
Yeah.
puckering. But that's a good tip. That really is.
But to answer your question, um, I kind of come in and out of a routine. Like I can have a routine for a while. Well, let's just say, the most recent thing was a competition that I had coming up. So I had a set routine that I was doing every single day for training, for food, and then it kind of worked into that routine. But I'll admit, the last week and a half now, I haven't been eating much. I just needed a break. And so little routine things like that kind of slipped through the cracks. Uh, that's why it's important to check in with yourself and to, I put a note in my calendar every Sunday. It's a repeating weekly check in. And I have a couple questions that pop up, and then I can fill out certain things if I need to, but it's just the normal calendar, Google Calendar app. But that kind of brings me back, like, oh shit, yeah, this week I did not even think about doing whatever it was I was supposed to do. So a lot of little reminders like that help. And then my Monday gratitude always kind of sparks a reminder. So I try to, like I say, if I'm going to tell other people to do it, then I've got to do it
Hmm.
myself. The last thing on earth I want to be is a
Yeah.
hypocrite and
Mhm.
everything else. So
Yeah, and it's contagious. Like those posts are contagious. I think something that really helped me with the gratitude is journaling. I believe you have worked with Alex Keekle as well, right?
yes,
So he probably had the suggest the same thing to you, but every morning, right when you wake up, in cursive, right, what you're grateful for. I think it was in cursive. It just kind of wakes the mind up, and just that. I started that when I was really had a lot of back pain, and so I was really focused on that pain instead of what else was going on in my life. And just that really helped. And I think and I'm not journaling every day anymore, but man, it does change your brain. It changes the way you think about things, and definitely starts really small. But if and with his check-ins, he was always so positive and grateful in his own life. It was
the
very contagious to me. And it made me start thinking the kind of the same way. I'm like, his week was so great. And I'm like, so I'm talking back to him like, my week was so great. These are all the great things. So it just honestly kind of changed a little bit of wiring. And so I'm super grateful for that because I think it did make me start talking about myself and my own life like that. So when I see your posts, it makes me start to think more positively, especially because so much negative shit out on the internet. So I like the positive content. I'm like, and seeing a big guy be like, life is great. Yeah, yeah. Like this is great. I love it. Yeah, life is great. It doesn't have to be like, oh, doom. I'm doing all this to beat down my body and fight my demons. It's like, I am, just living and grateful about life right now. It's good, good energy.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you say that about Alex, because he is like the most positive. When he writes back, it's, oh, everything's great,
Yeah.
kids are great, the wife's great. This, I'm so
Yeah.
happy, and it's like, fuck, okay, man, me too.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, it's so nice just to focus because I'm like, oh, a lot of great things did happen this week. This is awesome. It was funny. It's very contagious. I'm not working with them anymore, but I worked with them for a year, and it definitely gave me a lot of good habits and routines. So, you know, I think just having a role model like that, or someone who's actually living that way, like putting that um, helps you model the way, not your thoughts, but just the way your outlook on life. And that's just so important. I mean, like you said, you were with people dragging you down before, misery loves company. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you probably have a lot more positive people around you now and coaches and things like that. So, no, I really appreciate those posts.
But
Thank you too.
it's like they say, you are the sum of your five closest influences.
Mm-hmm.
The five people you are around the most. That is going to be a really big reflection on you. And if you surround yourself with a bunch of negative people or self-defeating people or people with limiting beliefs that want to hold you back without even realizing it, maybe they don't, maybe they say they don't, but they themselves haven't figured out that they can be better than they are, and so they're projecting that on you. Because it's not always a vicious thing or a malicious thing, I should say. It's just the way people are wired, and
Mm-hmm.
if you surround yourself with that, it will influence your own wiring. And I love the way you said how he wants you to write in cursive, because there is a direct link to writing something, like handwriting it out to
Mm-hmm.
your brain, and it hits so much deeper. When I look at stuff online, I follow so many pages that I try to take notes on for my own business, my own coaching, and I take so many notes on my phone. I've got pages, pages and pages of notes on my phone, but half of it I don't even remember. When I write it down, I remember probably 90,
Mm-hmm.
95% of it. It's so much more effective.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I wanted to touch too for anyone listening that maybe hasn't tried. All three of us have tried writing down the gratitudes and stuff, but the process of it isn't always that seamless. And you specifically said, when you were first doing it, when you were sitting on your couch, you looked at your feet and you made note, but then almost instantly that negative spiral started to come in and talk to you, like the front of your brain, like, fuck that, I have this. And I remember specifically, like, so I've always been about gratitude and journaling, and I've always actually, as part of like my clients' check-ins, I'll have them list something. And there was a period about when I first moved to Vegas a few months after, I just felt like I had nothing to live for. So I was like, all right, let me start picking up my gratitude journal every morning after my walk. And there was one day where I started to get so negative, I flipped back and I go, Brittany, fucking every day, the only thing you're grateful for is your morning walk with your dog. And I started to get really nasty with myself. And I was like, I'm so fake because I'm helping my clients be happy, but like I'm not even fucking happy right now, and I have nothing else to live for. So I just wanted to share that because it's something that like you're not just gonna get a journal and write down everything you're grateful for, and it's like, whoa, your life changes, woohoo! But if you can learn when you're gratitude, like when you're writing the gratitude journal down, to interrupt those thoughts, because I think it's just like meditating or exercising. It's like it's not seamless. You're not just gonna have a perfect time, even though it's a simple process, just writing something down, like it still stirs the pot and brings the negative parts of your mind that people don't always see out into the front. So I just love that you shared that too, because I kind of thought like when that was happening to me, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I teach this shit and it's fucking happening to me. Like I felt so pathetic. So it was good to hear you say that, and you're like, all right, next thing, let's look at my hands. So you just got to keep moving on. And I was like, you know what? I don't care that every day my gratitude is my dog and breathing fresh air, because eventually it'll be more.
It's a good start, and it's even if it's one thing, that's one more thing than you had when you weren't grateful. And that's two things, because, well, three things: you're walking, fresh air, and your dog.
Yeah. And that's how
So
I had to look at it. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you just got to break it down into little pieces. But you're right, it's like a meditation. Just sit and try and clear your mind and see how well that works out for you. It's like every 3 seconds another thought pops in. So meditations are very imperfect, but that's it's the same process. You just keep trying, and you're definitely going to have shitty days. There's going to be days, especially when you're on freaking internet, Instagram or whatever, with the election and COVID and wars overseas. Everybody's wanting to fight. Everybody's wanting to argue, and it's just exhausting. And it's
The
hard not to get
phone,
wrapped up into it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Christy and I always talk about the phone and how it causes us anxiety. But when I was at my lowest, and like it sucked because I needed my phone to be able to pay my fucking bills. Like
Yeah,
that's how I make my living. And I just
yeah,
wanted to take it. And I was like, my life would be so much better if I didn't have to just make content right now. And it's so interesting how like when I'm in a negative headspace, just picking up my phone is like the hardest thing ever. But when I'm good, it's easy. So
yeah.
it's yeah.
What's hard because, like you said, it's your living, it's your
Yeah.
income. Mine too. I know exactly what you mean.
All
I
of
know.
us.
We're all like,
All three of
ah.
us. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to share before I ask some questions, maybe to someone listening? If they could, maybe one takeaway from everything you've shared, or Christy, I don't know if you have any additional questions.
No, I just anything else you want to share? Then we can do our little fun questions.
Well, I think the most important thing to take from my journey, and when it came to the injuries before, when it came to the whole crash and burn and then rising out of the
Mhm.
ashes, um, even to now where, I've had to have my shoulder put back together. I tore my supraspinatus off, and that's a slow freaking process. And then the hip replacement it's a slow process when I've
Mhm.
had 2 years of not being able to train my legs beforehand. So it doesn't matter how rough the road in front of you looks. It doesn't matter how hard life beats you down. And it doesn't matter how many people kick you while you're down there. It's up to you to get the fuck up
Hmm.
and keep moving forward. You have to realize that you're the only person living your life. You're the only one who can make that decision. People can help you along the way, but nobody's going to hold your hand through the whole thing. I kind of say that life is like a Special Olympics race. We all run. If one person trips, it's nice to get picked up, but ultimately you have to go and finish the race. Everybody kind of helps you out, but then ultimately you got to get on your own 2 feet and cross the finish line. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from this. It's sometimes it looks like it's an insurmountable cliff that you'll never be able to climb. But if you put one foot in front of the other, one handhold in front of the other, whether it's an inch or 10 feet, keep moving forward.
I love that. Are you currently taking clients for for strongman, or
I,
do you just
yeah,
do strongman training, or do you have other clients as well?
I've got a couple. I've kind of branched out. I have some just
Okay.
general fitness. I have
Okay.
strongman. I've had powerlifting. I've had just mindset coaching as well with some.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Awesome.
I try to keep
Awesome.
it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, little.
I try to keep it low. I try
Yeah.
to put a lot of time into getting to know my clients.
Hmm.
And there's some people who have like 100 clients, and I have no idea
I
how.
know.
We
Brittany and
talk
I
about that
can
all the time.
relate. We're like, we're not going to make a lot of money because we have to keep our roster so small because we're very diligent. But we will put your information. We'll get your information and put it in the show notes too if anyone wants to reach out and see if he has availability. There's
Definitely.
limited availability for coaching. Um, but do you have? So you're on Instagram. Do you have a YouTube or any website or any other projects you work on?
Not currently. Mostly just everything is done through Instagram.
Okay, easy enough.
Perfect. We'll
That's
put
good.
that. Yeah.
Same.
Awesome.
So
All
let's
right.
go
Now
into our
time.
fun
Yeah, some fun
questions.
questions. Okay. So especially because you said at one point you only ate McDonald's like every other day. If you could have one meal for the rest of your life, but it could only be one meal, what would it be?
Oh.
Describe it in detail.
There's a place called Thai Corner Cafe, and they make the best pad thai ever. And they always know it's me when I order because I order beef pad thai, extra beef, extra shrimp. And every time it's, oh, hello, Travis. Oh, okay. We make this for you.
Is that down in
But
Reno?
yeah, in Reno. Yeah.
I love
I
pad
feel like you
thai.
told me about that when I was asking about food at the show.
Probably did. I recommend. I love that place. And then I would finish it with a pint of caramel cone Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Oh,
Yeah.
yum.
Yum. I
Earlier when
love
you
it.
said you said something like what gives you the most dopamine? I think you said that, and I was thinking ice cream.
Yeah,
But you said novelty, and I was like, yeah, novelty. Yes, that's what I meant.
the ice cream's novel. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
So my
Well,
question is, if you could create like a mutant strongman out of three strongmen, and you could choose yourself too, like someone's pressing, someone's, agility, or someone's biceps. I don't know.
that's a
Interesting.
good one, Christine. I
Hmm.
love that question.
I know, and I was like, it seems so like surface, like after all the stuff we talked about, we're like, let's just go back to strongman. But
From any era.
yeah, any era.
Any era. Okay. Um. Geez. Okay. So I would have a mix of. Well, I'm gonna say I got to put myself in there somewhere, and my
Mhm,
speed and agility was top notch, and I'm trying to get that back. That was where I won contests was stones and then quickness,
mhm.
athleticism. But then if we could put probably Zydrunas' ability to press, and I got to put Mitch Hooper in there because the guy is just a stud at just everything. So yeah, we could put that mix together, that overhead power, that deadlift power, then athleticism that would make him even more unbeatable Mitch Hooper.
Awesome. Wouldn't want to go up against that guy.
Good answer. Love it. Awesome. Well, Travis, thank you so, so, so much for sharing that story with us and taking the time to talk to us. It was, it's especially a very good time of year to hear this because around the holidays, you know, people forget to just practice small little things, and we tend to get a little crazy. So, and congrats on OSG. And yeah, I'll let you know when we release this. And thank you everyone for listening. And hopefully you feel inspired to, pretty much like Travis said, take some self accountability. If you don't like where you're at right now, you can have the power to change it.
Absolutely.